Welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alzheimer's Speaks. Today, we are going to be talking about brain health. And actually, there's a brain health challenge that you will want to tune into. But we're going to be talking about reducing risk and just improving brain health overall. But before I introduce you to our guest, I always encourage people to go to our website, which is alzheimersspeaks.com. There you can access all of our free educational resources that we've curated since 2009. So there's yads of stuff there, guys. You can also tap into our book, Betty the Bald Chicken, Lessons in How to Care. And I'd also recommend that you go to dementiamap.com. We have over 150 different categories you can search. There's a calendar of events, a glossary of terms because you don't know what you don't know, and some wonderful blog articles. And if you are a business or an advocate, or maybe you are living with dementia, or a family member who has some type of support, service, product, or tool that can help others, please sign up to be a member. You can also get a tour from me directly. Just go to dementiamap.com. It's free to use and it's free to be listed, though there are a couple of paid plans as well if you want a little more access. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and introduce you to our guest today. So Heather, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I know this is going to be an uplifting show and we all need that, especially the first of the year, get our adrenaline going and our minds and hearts and bodies set in the right direction. So I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself first because you can do a much better job than I can.
That is very sweet. So my name is Heather Elwell, and I'm the founder of Brain Health Mentors. And what was the motivation and inspiration behind this is sadly, my Nana passed away from dementia. And back then we didn't know that there was anything that we could do to stop or slow down dementia. Right? We just thought it was something that just automatically happened to us. And, my background is I've been a speech language pathologist for over 24 years, and I'm a certified health and wellness coach. And when I was in graduate school all those years ago, we didn't know about neurogenesis. That research was being done, but it hadn't yet made it into the textbooks, right? We didn't know that we could create new brain cells and we could do things to help our brain health. And so the creation of my program is a result of the information I wish I would have had all those years ago for my Nana. These are things that I wish I could have shared with her that unfortunately the research hadn't yet been done, right? But now we live in a very exciting time where all this research is taking place, and we are so fortunate to live in this time where we are learning that there are things that we can do to help our brain health trajectory.
Wonderful. So now you mentioned that your grandma had dementia. How long ago was that and how long did she live with it?
And I have a little picture to show you I thought I would share. This is my sweet Nana right there on the end. And there's my mom. And just to share a little bit more, my Nana had no family history of dementia. So I think a lot of times people think, well, no one in my family has dementia, so I'm good. Well, that's not necessarily true. My Nana didn't have a family history of dementia either. The story of my Nana is this. She had this beautiful, incredible life, right? She had 3 children she loved very much. She had close relationships with her grandchildren. She and my grandfather traveled all over the world. She had wonderful friend groups as well as my grandfather. And the last 2 years of my grandfather's life, my Nana was his caregiver. And when she was his caregiver, she slowly severed some of those ties that she had to the community. She was volunteering every week. She stopped doing that. They stopped going to church each week. She stopped getting together with friends. All these connections she had with her community, she stopped participating in that. And then sadly, when my grandfather passed away, she was so grief stricken that she didn't go back to being in a faith-based community like church. She didn't go back to volunteering. And sadly, when she went to get together with friends, half of her friends had moved away and half of her friends had passed away. So that was just a really hard time for her. And so we know, life has many recalibrations, right? I have a senior in high school right now. So I'm about to go through a recalibration, right? From our, years in school to college to getting out of school very early on in our careers. If we have children, if we retire, if we lose a spouse or we go through a divorce, like our life is full of so many recalibrations. And what's important is that we continue connecting to community groups throughout these recalibrations. Because unfortunately, if we don't, you're going to find yourself in a situation like my Nana, which was she lacked those social groups to connect with after my grandfather passed away. So my Nana, we noticed it was actually the wedding that I showed you a picture of was the last time we really were able to be together as a family at a big event. And it was shortly thereafter that we realized she was going to need support. And as we know, sometimes when we move someone with dementia, that's where we see a big downturn. And sadly, we moved her. She was living on her own, and no one lived close by. So we moved her to a facility close to my uncle. And it was right after that she deteriorated fairly quickly. So she lived for about another, I'm going to say 5 years after that. So she was very well cared for. Her life, we had a caregiver with her that it brought her a lot of joy. She did a lot of fun things. It was cute. Like, I felt like she was in very good care. And I think that's important for all of us, for our loved ones. We want them to feel safe and loved. And she felt that way. But yes, it's sad to watch that progression with someone. And what also is sad to add on top of that is the legacy of fear, right? That we have when we have a loved one that's gone through that. So with my mother and myself, for years, we've been talking about when I'm in the nursing home, when I experience dementia, right? That's been our dialogue. And that's a really unhealthy dialogue to talk that way, right? But again, the research hadn't been done. And, anyone that is a nurse or a doctor, speech language pathologist like myself, we have to do all this continuing education. And quite frankly, it's something a lot of us kind of complain about. Oh no, got to quick get my 30 hours in, it's coming to the end of the year. And that was actually the inspiration behind me creating this program as I was doing all this continuing education. And I saw this huge shift. Because when my Nana was going through dementia, we worked on things like memory books, which are wonderful. It's a wonderful way for them to connect and interact with other people, right? That they can hold on to those language skills longer. But there was nothing really out there in terms of what we could do to slow the progression of the disease and also to improve, language skills and overall wellness. And there's so much research taking place right now that there are all these things that we can do, even if we have the diagnosis of dementia or, everyone in general. These are things that we all should be doing throughout our life.
My mom lived with dementia for 30 years. And
Wow.
people always ask me, what do you think contributed to her living that long with it? And I'm not a medical professional. I am not degreed in any of these areas, but I always say it was the social connection for her. I totally, totally believe that was the number one thing. She felt purposeful. She felt like she belonged, and she was happy. And then you also mentioned about the fear. You guys were talking about it, trying to be normal about, okay, let's plan, and what's this going to be like? And that's one of the things that has driven me nuts is kind of our fear-based marketing that's been out there for so many years, instead of how do we live graciously with this? How do we control as much of it as we can? How do we get educated about it? And, I've been in this space now since 2009. And, my whole goal was to try to connect people to services, products, and tools, because that was not there for our family at all. And I just thought it was asinine that there was not a well of information that you could go to. And families nowadays they're still running into the same thing. They get a diagnosis, they go out to the car, they cry for 2 hours before they can even drive home because they're devastated, and they haven't, most of them don't even get the number to the Alzheimer's Association. And that is just one of millions of different types of services that are out there, but people don't know that. We have to correct that, and we have to help people find out about things that they don't know about. So I'm just thrilled to have you on the show today to talk about something new and exciting and fun that can give them control and change their attitude towards disease. I mean, disease isn't going away. We hear that on the news constantly. So we have to learn how to adapt to it, and what we can do with it. Now, you had said it was with the classes that really inspired you. Was it pretty shocking to you when you learned this information through your continuing ed?
Yes, yes, which is why I created this program. I took a year-long sabbatical to research all these pillars of brain health and what were the things that kept coming up most often in research. And then I developed a 10-week program around that. And I felt like this needs to be shouted from the rooftops. This is something every single person needs to know. And let me just say, this information is just as important for my parents that are in their mid 70s as it is for my children who are teenagers, right? We all need to be working on our brain health, right? Whether we have any concerns or not, we all need to be working on it. And it's interesting. There's all these little choices we can make every day, and I think we have two ways we can go, right? We can have the ripple effect of fear, right? Or we can have the butterfly effect happen. And when we do things, when we're connecting with others, or we're serving others, or we're practicing gratitude, or we're learning new things, right? Those are all things that impact our family, our friends, our community. Or we can get really depressed over a diagnosis we've been given, not engage in community, impact our family, in a negative way, because I am the sandwich generation right now, and I'm seeing, when someone is given the diagnosis of dementia that is, a parent, unfortunately, it's taking some of our sandwich generation out of the workforce, right? So there are just so many things we can do. There are so many things we can catch early. They say, the research shows, and again, you and I appreciate this because we have a family history, 40% of dementia cases are a result of modifiable risk factors. 40%. 40%. That is a huge statistic. That is someone that has someone in their family that has experienced dementia. I will take that. I will take that all day, and I will do everything in my power to help reduce my risk, because I see how it impacts so many people around you, and all the things that we know that contribute to good brain health help your family, your community, your loved ones as well. So, I tell, whenever I give speaking engagements, or I always share with my clients, everyone is a gift. Everyone is a gift. Even if you have the diagnosis of dementia, you can still be an enormous gift to others. Whether it's a compliment, a smile, just being outside in community, waving to someone, right? We can be a gift to others. And I think that we all need to hold on to that purpose, that we all have a purpose. There is something that we can all do that can help others. And so by practicing that, we're also, not only is it life-giving for other people, but we're helping ourselves as well.
Oh, I totally agree with that concept. I think so often people just, because again, it's been a fear-based marketing thing for years. You get a diagnosis and people picture everyone at end stages. in a wheelchair, not able to care for themselves, can't speak, can't do anything. And they still picture nursing homes and communities as these dark, dingy places that smell like urine, and wheelchairs are bumping into one another. I mean, I still hear people worry about that, and it's like, walk in a door. Things have really changed. And listen to people. There are amazing advocates living with dementia that are at conferences and doing all kinds of different platforms to get their voice out there and let us know what it's really like, because that is something that wasn't even part of the conversation before. The patient wasn't part of the conversation. The caregiver might be heard but not really listened to. And the concept you're talking about is inclusive of everyone, saying we all have this ripple effect, we all impact one another, and you can't just push a sector out of the way and think that it's not going to have an effect on everybody. It does. And I think that piece about gratitude is really important, because I'm a firm believer that you will find what you're looking for. So if you want the doom and gloom and fear, it's going to be all over for you to grab and latch a hold of. But if you want to find joy, there's just as much, if not more, of that out there. But if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it.
That is so true. And you cannot experience gratitude and fear at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
So when we are practicing gratitude, right? And what's a great way to do that? When we're serving other people, right? When we are practicing gratitude, we are not able to experience fear at the same time. So I'd love to tell a story about one of my recent clients had recently been given the diagnosis of dementia, car keys taken away. She's sleeping 12 hours a night because she's, depressed. And she started working with me, and we talked about sleeping, a little bit less, having structure and routine to her day. So all of a sudden she's up a little bit earlier. She's walking around the neighborhood. She's saying hi to her neighbors, right? Having conversations with all of them. She had been going to church, had stopped during the pandemic. So I encouraged her to go back. All of a sudden she realized, oh my goodness, I saw this person. And I said hello to that person. And it was, she saw all of a sudden all these opportunities of ways that she could serve. And to me, that was the most exciting thing, was this light bulb go off. And for her to realize my life is not over. There are still a lot of things that I can do. And so she decided one of the things she would like to do was reach out. She had several friends that were recent widows. So she was going to call them on the phone and just tell them, I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. And I would wish you could hear the joy in her. This is someone that was sleeping 12 hours, feeling very depressed. And then we had this shift that we were connecting with others and we have stories, right? If we're not experiencing life, we don't have any stories to share. Right? Just being out in community, you can come home and, potentially, if you have good language skills, talk about what you saw, right? And communicate. I think that's a great way to look at this, is what stories do you have to share? What life are you experiencing that you can share that with other people? And again, looking for ways that you can give back. If you're not out and connecting with others, you're not seeking or finding ways that you can help others. And it can be a lot of times people think, okay, what are the big things? It doesn't need to be a big thing, right? It can be a kind text. With this woman, was just reaching out to friends and having a conversation and telling her sweet friends that she was thinking about them. And as a result of doing that, it put her life in perspective, because she was still married. She felt so grateful. Like, here I am, I'm married. All of a sudden her diagnosis was not her focus, because her focus was on other people.
Well, I think that's really true. And I think that can work with the individual. It can work within families. I remember when my dad died and I was together with my brothers, and I was saying, I think I might write a book. And I was sharing some of the stories about caring for him and mom. And I remember my older brother saying, well, where'd you get the stories? And I remember my mouth must have just like hit the floor, like, well, I was there. And then and I just thought, oh my gosh, they weren't there. They don't have any of these stories. And they were really kind of jealous. That's how I felt anyways in that moment, that they didn't have those stories. And it's like, you can't, you have to create the stories. You have to be part of the story. And that was just that just hit me so hard. And it made me put them in a different light in terms of trying to get them to be like me and have them care, because that's one of the things I always hear with siblings. They always want their family members to step up, but everybody does stuff differently. And so often a person who's diagnosed becomes the disease. We allow that to happen to them, and that should never happen. We don't see that with other diseases where people feel it to that effect or for that long of period of time. But I think it is normal when you get a chronic illness, to feel some depression, to feel some sadness, to feel some anger. I think those are normal emotions, but it's getting out of those cycles and then reclaiming who you are as a whole person.
Well, Lori, I absolutely loved. I was listening to your podcast last week, and you had a story that I would love to repeat. And it was this, that your mother, that had been diagnosed with dementia, really wanted to watch your daughter, right? She really, really, really wanted to have this experience where she was babysitting, your daughter, and that she felt that she was helping out in caregiving. And you said it took a little extra work, you had to kind of prepare, the food ahead of time, but you said it was such a beautiful moment to watch her feel like she had this purpose, right? That she was able to do this nice thing, experience this sweet moment with your daughter. And I think just that was such a beautiful example of, what are ways we can, if we are caregivers and if we are, living with the person with dementia, what are ways that we can serve together? And to think about some simple things for, I'll give you one example. Our church, for our middle school and high school youth, they create what they call manna bags. It's just little Ziploc bags, and they put, a bottled water and a granola bar, a brand new pair of socks, and they distribute it out in the community for those in our unhoused community. So something simple like that is something that someone that has been diagnosed with dementia could absolutely do, even if they're at the later stages, just putting something in a bag and telling them, oh, this is going to be so great. This person's going to be so grateful that you've given them food and water, a clean pair of socks. I mean, I think that is a great activities to think about. What can we do? Wherever we are, and yet again, we all have different limitations, but what are ways that together we could help others?
Oh, I so agree. And I want to bring up one point when you mentioned the story about my mom. I want people to understand that was not a staged event to make her feel good. That was a real event that made her feel really, really good and proud. But it was a very much a viable, important piece of our lives, because my mom and my daughter were close all their lives.
Oh,
And my daughter only knew my mother with dementia, but they were like this. They were just two peas in a pod, and they had a wonderful relationship. And she taught my daughter compassion and love through that process of being connected. She taught her acceptance, and kids don't judge like adults judge, and
right.
so it was a beautiful, beautiful match. And on the bags and stuff you're talking about, I think there's so much we can do intergenerational and just across the board if we stop categorizing people as not abled and saying, match their abilities. And even if they
Mhm.
can't do a whole bag, maybe they can do part of a bag. Maybe they can get everything in there, but they can't do the damn Ziploc like I can't do sometimes either.
Right,
And,
right.
and that might not have anything to do with dementia. It might have to do with arthritis, and things. So, I mean, it's just really important that we look from a higher level down to say, how are we all connected and how can we serve?
Again, we can talk about the butterfly effect of good, right?
Yeah,
You're thinking of just your mother, but it impacted your daughter because she felt loved. It made you feel good. Again, that didn't just impact one person, that impacted three people and
exactly.
many more through your story, right? So again, when we do these good behaviors, when we make these wise choices, when we do these positive actions, it,
Mhm.
it the butterfly effect is amazing. It can impact so many people.
Well, I want to take a little break here right now. And just in case people are popping in midstream on the show, we are talking with Heather Elwell, and she is with Brain Health Mentors. And we're just having a fabulous conversation. So, chances are, if you just popped in, you're going to want to rewind and catch it from the beginning. You can also visit her website, brainhealthmentors.com, and you can sign up for their free February Brain Health Challenge too. And we have that link in the show notes. She is also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But we are going to learn a little bit about Q blocks, and then we're going to be right back. Q blocks, they have been absolutely excellent to deal with. They have been in business for 18 years and they serve the globe. I can't say enough good things about this company. I've had a lot of bad experiences. I don't know about you with tech companies. They have made a very complicated process very easy. And their staff is so kind, so polite, so respectful to work with. And when I am frustrated and ready to pull my hair out, they just smile and tell me everything's going to be okay. And they really are just on top of the communication, which alleviates so much stress as an owner when you're dealing with tech issues. You can get a 10% discount. Visit them at QBlocks, that's CUEBLOCKS.com, or you can email them at let's talk at qblocks.com. For that 10% discount, just put Lori, Lori, in the inquiry form. And again, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I surely haven't been. I can't rave enough about this company. And that's kind of rare these days. Well, we are back with Heather, and we are going to talk about her brain health mentoring program. So, Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit about the program itself and what people can expect?
Absolutely. So again, the inspiration behind the creation was, what are the top pillars of brain health that I could help implement in someone's life? Because again, a lot of us know things that we should be doing, but it's really hard to do it all on our own, right? It's nice when we have a coach slash cheerleader that is encouraging us and motivating us to implement some of these strategies. So what I created was a 10-week program. And I have a couple examples here. Those of you that are watching the video, here are some of my materials right here. Very fun. That's the one for women. This is the one I created for men. So you get a fun workbook. It's almost like a magazine where it has, and it put together in a beautifully curated way. Here is the research behind brain health. Here's some questions and prompts, and how could we implement this into your life? So the interesting thing is, when I created this program, I thought for sure that my average client would be, someone that was retired, right? Someone that is already, through their working years and potentially is concerned about memory problems. And surprisingly, the majority of my clients are in their 40s and 50s with no memory problems at all. And the reason for that is they're hearing the stats and where we're trending. Maybe they've seen dementia with a parent or a loved one, and they say, I want to know right now. Please tell me now what I can be doing in these working years that will help improve my brain health trajectory. And we know there are so many risk factors that if we can catch them early, can impact our older adult years. There was some studies that came out recently that hearing loss in middle age is one of the biggest predictors for dementia later on in life, right? So catching these things early. And, when I work with my clients, we do a health and wellness assessment. It's just a great way for me to look at, again, how are we connecting with others? How are we sleeping? How are we handling stress in our lives? Do we have any health risk factors? And then I develop a program that we kind of target these things over these 10 weeks with them. But I've been able to catch a lot of things with my clients, again, decades before, because we know brain changes that lead to dementia can occur 20 to 30 years prior. So we want to catch these things. Another thing is, executive functioning difficulties, right? Executive functioning difficulties. I have a daughter with ADHD, so I can speak to this. These are things that she has difficulty with, which are task initiation, sustained attention to task completion, right? My daughter, she's in high school now. She's a senior. She's worked through that. She's strengthened those skills. She's doing better. But as we are getting older, sometimes those executive functioning skills are one of the things that deteriorate. Okay. And I don't know how much on your program in the past you've talked about mild cognitive impairment, but mild cognitive impairment is the precursor to dementia, right? That's the diagnosis we can get prior to dementia. Not everyone that has mild cognitive impairment converts to dementia. But if we have difficulty with those executive functioning skills, that is a higher conversion to dementia. So that's one of the things that I target in my program is strengthening, looking to see if we have difficulties in those areas, and if so, strengthening those skills. For those of you that might be concerned about a loved one, what that looks like is things accumulating in their house, right? Maybe we have stacks of things that in the past, maybe your parent was better about cleaning out things, taking it to Goodwill, that kind of thing. What that looks like if we're looking in a home is clutter, right? We're having trouble deciding what to do with certain things, right? And that again, that's just one area. But I think that's another reason why I'm having more people in their 40s and 50s coming to me, because they have stronger executive functioning skills, right? So they say, I see this could be a potential problem down the road. I want to act on it right now. I want to act on this right now, and I want to help myself long term. So that's just something to be aware of. If you notice that in yourself, that is a risk factor. We want to make sure that, we are not apathetic. If we think, it'd be great to attend this community organization, or it would be great to connect with these other people, that we are following through. If we notice we are not initiating, right, and engaging, again, that's kind of a red flag. We want to make sure, again, like I said, throughout life, that we are connecting with others. And so that's, again, where my program comes in, because a lot of times I love my program, especially for people that are going through transitions. Again, people at my age that might have a child that is a senior going off to school. You think about how much our kids consume our time, right? It's so consuming, and it's wonderful, right? But I'm going to have a big shift next year. Someone that is, finishing up their working years, about to head into retirement, that's a big shift. So before, these big shifts occur, it's really important that we're looking to the future and saying, what does my next chapter look like? Right? What group that I'm not a part of right now, because I'm very busy with my senior, what group do I want to be part of next year? That again, can be a friend funnel that allows me to connect with others. That again, when I connect with others and I'm part of these, programs or community events, that again, I have stories to share, right? So I think that's a way to just continue thinking about it throughout our life. Is if you were to get together with a family member this week or call a loved one on the phone, what story do you have to share? What new thing did you do this week? What's a new conversation, new neighbor that you met, new exhibit you saw at a museum? What are new things? What stories do you have to share? And if you don't have any to share, right, then that's something we need to look into. What just even a simple walk around the neighborhood, right? There's so much we can see and experience that we can come home and share with a loved one.
Interesting. There was a group over in the UK, and I can't remember which one, but one of the things they did in their communities was they had their staff befriend residents, and they would have to spend time with them. And I'll never forget, one woman said, she looked forward to these gatherings, and she thought it was for her to engage the resident in memory care. And she said, but what she learned was that she had to come up with conversational things that she did. And she said it really had a huge impact on her life and how she lived it and she didn't think initially that was the intent of this program at all, but it was really to be not a one-sided conversation, to really be interactive. And it was pretty interesting what she got out of it. Again, I think we are all more alike than we are different when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to these basic things, and yet when a disease hits, we tend to think, no, they're different. No, they're still the same. They just have to adapt to this, and we have to adapt to this. We have to adjust on how are we still going to make our relationship work. And I think we've been kind of pressure campaigned over the years, and it's gotten better, but it's still out there to think that the relationship won't survive and it can't exist. And that is so far from the truth. And that needs to be screamed from the mountaintops as far as I'm concerned. So I like your approach with this.
To speak to, the story we shared earlier about your mother and your daughter, what experiences can we have together?
Yeah.
Right? If we are just sitting at home, chances are that's not going to be this beautiful experience. But if we, maybe bake chocolate chip cookies, or, we just take a little stroll around the neighborhood, or, there are all these I live in the Tampa Bay area, and I've noticed there are a lot of museums in our area that have certain times where you can bring a loved one with dementia, and a lot of times it's free. Right. So, and that's what I love to talk about a lot too, is like, what free things can you do in your community, right? That are great for both of your brain health. Right. So I think that is, it's wonderful when we can experience something together. So, when my Nana was late stage dementia, and, unfortunately, the conversation couldn't happen anymore. I thought this was so clever. My uncle said I still wanted to be able to talk to her, but I didn't want it to be this one-sided thing. So he came up with the idea to read to her, and she loved it. So he got she always loved Gone with the Wind. So he got Gone with the Wind, and he read it to her. And so I think that's what we need to think. What can we experience together? And we both leave feeling so much, more joy in that moment.
Oh, exactly. And there's lots of great books that you can do that with. I don't know if you're familiar with Nana's books, but they are larger print, and they are like 8.5 by 11. There's a picture, graphic on one side, few words on the other. So if someone's still able to read, they can read. And when they turn the page, it's a whole new theme. So they don't have to stay engaged in a whole story. And if they can't read, somebody could read to them, or you can just use the picture as reminiscing. So,
That's
it's a
right.
multi-purpose way to engage. Again, there's not a right way or a wrong way, with this. Let's talk a little bit about people who have gone through the program. What kind of results are they seeing? And to me, more important, feeling.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's really cute. All my clients tell me they hear me in their ear. After we complete your program, we still hear you talking to us. So, again, I go back to the butterfly effect of good. My clients a lot of times, are at a stage where maybe they aren't engaging as much in the community as they, had in the past. And again, this is all ages, right? We're talking 40-year-olds through 80-year-olds. So that is what is so neat. Again, is looking for those friend funnels or those community organizations. And and I just want to also encourage, we talked a lot today about serving others. Okay. And so far, this has happened with every single one of my clients. So I just want to state this. A lot of times when we have this idea and we want to do good, it doesn't happen right away. Unless we're taking chocolate chip cookies to the neighbor, right? That we can do right now. But a lot of times, if we want to serve at our church, or if we want to serve at a local school, or any of these things, a lot of times you're not getting a call right back. And what I've seen a lot of my clients is this: okay, I've tried it, they didn't get back to me. And again, that's where I come in as the cheerleader. Well, let's try again. If we called, let's email. If we've emailed, let's call. So I feel like I've watched my clients go through that hump of I'd like to serve. I think it'd be neat to serve, but I haven't gotten someone saying, yes, join right now. And so watching them go through that and then finally plug in, and the joy that it brings them, whether, one of my clients, it was beach cleanups and being able to connect with these other people at a beach cleanup, right? For another one, it was serving at a local school. It's been so many different. So again, to watch with one person, the butterfly effect of it impacting so many other people, to me has been the most gratifying thing. To watch the new friendships develop, because again, here is the blessing. It was awful what happened to my Nana, and I wouldn't want someone else to go through that, but I'm the person that I wish my Nana would have had with the information I have now. So again, unfortunately it is too late for my sweet, incredible, amazing Nana. But what I think is I can help other people. I can share with other people what I've learned. And I think, if my Nana was a client right now, let me tell you what I would have shared with her. I would have said, please go back to your church. I know you loved it. Go back. Go back, chat with people. Maybe join a Bible study. She loved to garden. Please join a gardening club, right? Where you can serve in the community. You can help beautify your community as well as meeting other people. She exercised every day, so she was very fit, but I would have encouraged her, why don't, instead of you, being on the treadmill at home, why don't you walk in your neighborhood? Say hi to your neighbors, get to know all of them. What new things could you learn, right? There's all these wonderful college classes we can take. I was telling my parents, they're in their mid 70s and I'm about to pay for college next year with my daughter. So this is like really resonating with me. The cost of college. Well, a lot of times these local universities, if you're retired, you can take classes for free. So why don't you go take a class and learn about art history or whatever you're interested in, right? Helping to build that cognitive reserve, right? Building that cognitive reserve, again, helps reduce our risk of dementia. And again, think of the stories you could share because of this new information you're learning. Looking in the paper or online, what's a new coffee shop you could go to? My Nana had a beautiful home. And so again, we didn't know this back then, but she always said to us, well, my house is my job. That's what keeps me busy all day. And you know what? It did. And her house was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. The gardens were, I wish I had pictures to show you. Her gardens were absolutely incredible and beautiful. But I think to myself now, but who saw them? Right? No one saw these beautiful gardens. No one saw her beautiful house that she took such good care of. Instead, I would have encouraged her to connect with others, right? To be in community, have other people come to our house. I mean, there's just I feel like I just feel like we are in a very exciting time that we have this information now. And sadly, again, I'm going to say it again, sadly, we did not have this information when my Nana was going through this. We thought, this is great. She's going to be very busy taking care of her house, and she was. But as you said earlier in the program, connection is key. And we know that people that experience loneliness are 64% more likely to develop dementia. And again, so my Nana that had a great medical history, no family history of dementia, very healthy, I truly believe with her, it was the loneliness and it was the grief and it was the lack of connection and conversations with others that greatly contributed to her being diagnosed with dementia.
Oh, I totally would agree with that. Now, tell us a little bit more about your brain health challenge coming up in February.
And it's so fun. So, I just think there are so many life-giving strategies that we can do every day that, again, make us have a more beautiful and abundant life, are free to do, right? And it's just little tips every day. So if you sign up for the Brain Health Challenge, it'll just be one little tip a day that'll be something fun for you to do. And again, it would be wonderful if this tip that you incorporated it into your daily life, right? If you could make it a habit. Again, it's hard to do it all on our own, but I thought this challenge would be fun, that each day you can do one little fun thing that will, again, it will contribute to your brain health being better, but also contribute to you having a more joyful and abundant life.
Well, that's wonderful. Will they receive that by email then if they
Yes.
go to the website to sign up for that? And
Correct. Yes. You just go to Brain Health Mentors and you click Brain Health Tips, or if you just subscribe to Brain Health Mentors, you will be part of the challenge. And again, it'll just be one email a day with it'll have a tip as well as why it's important. Because again, there's so many things that we know now can contribute to dementia, or again, make the the projection of it so much worse. Or we can implement some of these strategies and help delay, prevent us getting dementia.
okay. And then if they want to sign up for your mentorship program, how do they do that?
There, if you go to my website, there's a little sign up right there where you can schedule an appointment with me, and I'm happy to, go into more detail about the program. It's usually it's a 10-week program. I work with people 30 minutes each week. You'll get virtually the workbook that I showed you, as well as just things to think about. I have these daily observations that I have my clients. They just look at it every day, and again, that's where I get in their head that they know. Have I connected with others today? Have I exercised or gone for a walk today? How did I sleep last night? And nutrition. We know nutrition's a huge factor. Just asking questions. How do you feel? Right? If you've had sugar, how do you feel about that? How do you feel the next day? Because honestly, I've done the program myself, and I know now if I'm having a bad brain health day the next day, I know why. If and I share this a lot when I give talks. I can have one glass of alcohol and again, I drink very rarely. I'm a social drinker only. But let's say I go out with friends, and if I have a second glass of wine, I know I'm going to have word finding difficulties the next day. Guaranteed. I'm going to have some brain fog, right? So it's just, I don't know that I would have known that had I not been paying attention to those behaviors. So I think a lot of times it's, paying attention to how we feel after we've exercised. If we're not having a lot of sugar, how are we feeling the next day? Are we feeling sharper? If we're feeling groggier, well, what did we do the day before that we can look to? And that, everybody's different. Everyone is different. I'll tell you, my kids have been off school for 2 weeks, and I was off for part of that time with them. I was not as sharp last week because I didn't have my same schedule. I didn't have my same routine, right? But now I'm aware of that. So I think so much of this is being aware, right? Having schedule and purpose to our day, and conversations and community involvement. You will notice a difference. If you aren't experiencing those things now, you will notice a difference if you start to do those things.
And I think it's important, kind of to journal those things too, as
Mm-hmm.
well. Now, do you have a gratitude journal in
I
your
sure
book?
do. I sure do. That's one of my pillars of brain health is gratitude, because the research shows, and again, I see this with my Nana. I want to encourage anyone that has gone through the loss of a spouse, or life turning out differently, than the way we thought. I think seeing a grief counselor is amazing. I think seeing a psychologist is so important if you're experiencing some of those difficulties. I know I've seen a psychologist myself. When we were going through the pandemic, again, I had 2 teenagers at home. That was a really, really tough time in our household. And again, I'm the caregiver. I'm taking care of my 2 kids. And I can honestly tell you, had I not seen a psychologist during that time, I don't think my kids would be doing as well as they are. Like I needed it as the caregiver for my children. Right. So I think seeking those services is really important because, again, if we look at the research, one of the things that keeps coming up is repetitive negative thinking. That's when we're stuck in this negative thought or idea. It can be fear. It can be, bad relationships that we've experienced in our life. But when we just keep, getting in that cycle of having these negative thoughts, that can be a fast pass to dementia. So that's why, again, gratitude is so important, because when we are experiencing gratitude, we cannot experience fear at the same time. And I'll be honest with you, for me, I had a lot of fear during the time of the pandemic with my kids. and my family. And for me, it was taking a walk. I always encourage my clients to have gratitude triggers, to identify in your life gratitude triggers, right? And if I just go around the corner from my house, there's this gorgeous oak tree. Well, that's one of my gratitude triggers. So every time I would, start feeling a little, depressed or negative, I'd walk outside, I'd turn the corner, and there'd be this beautiful oak tree. These things in our life that make us just pause and take a deep breath and experience gratitude, right? I think that's really important to identify that in our life. So when we are having these negative feelings, we can experience that. When we can look back at old notes that we've been given. I don't know about you, but I hold on to my thank you notes. Whenever I receive a thank you note from a beloved family member or, anyone in clients, I hold on to those. And that's another way to break that cycle of negative thinking. When someone has, given gratitude to us in something we've done, that's another great way to stop that cycle of negative thinking.
Good thoughts. Now, people can again go to your website, which is brainhealthmentors.com, and they can sign up for your Brain Health Challenge, which will send you out tips in February every day.
Very fun tip.
They can also sign up for your mentorship program as well. They can find you on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can feel your passion for this, which is always fun. To be able to work with someone who just isn't just stepping you through A, B, C, D, but really believes in what they're doing and why they're doing it, even more importantly. So, I ask our audience to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share this program, pass it along. You don't know who in your sphere of influence might need to hear this. They might need to be lifted up and given hope. And you can do that. It takes a little time, costs you no money, but can have a powerful, powerful impact. And maybe for yourself or someone in your family. Don't keep nuggets to yourself. I think that's one of the worst things we can do is we hear something and then we don't share it with others. And, to me, that's kind of one of your pieces that you're teaching is engage and share. Don't keep it to yourself. Be grateful and let others know that they're not alone and that there are resources out there that can help them. So again, Heather, thank you so much for your time and your expertise and stepping out and being brave and sharing your own personal story through this, but how you transform something that, none of us would wish upon anyone else getting dementia, but you flipped it like a pancake and, you're serving up something that's great to be able to help people in the future. And for that, it's just an honor to have you on the show. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor for me as well.
Wonderful. And for our listeners, again, you check out alzheimersspeaks.com. We have all kinds of free educational resources there for you. And also, don't forget about Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory as well. And if you have a service product, a tool, maybe you are living with dementia or a family member that doesn't think you're a business, but you have a Facebook group, or you've written a book, or you have a YouTube channel or a blog, you too can share your information. So don't for a second think you're not important. You are. All of us can turn this ship and make this path, that we're walking a gracious one when we work together. So thank you all so much. We'll talk to you next week. Bye now.